I'm an Outreach Hub Assistant for Study Hire. Welcome back to our Teacher CPD webinar series. It's really nice to be able to see you all here today, and if it's your first time, then welcome, and if you're a returning visitor, then welcome back. It's really nice to see you again. So just to let you know that these webinars are brought to you in collaboration with Aspire Hire, so that's another UniConnect programme, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Colleen, who is from Aspire Hire, and Gabby as well. So myself and Colleen will be putting the questions to the panel today, and I just wanted to do a little quick intro to go through some housekeeping things before we get going. So we're really looking forward to welcoming our panel today, who are going to be talking all about apprenticeships. Just to let you know that this session is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our website and also Aspire Hire's website after the session. So you can always go back and catch up on things that you may have missed, or send anything over to any colleagues. Please do feel free to share those links, as they'll be up on both of our websites. We do have a few pre-submitted questions that have come through before the session, so we will be putting them to the panel members today, so thank you for sending those in, and we'll also open the chat box up to any questions that you may have. So at any point during the session, if you think of a question, then please do just pop them in the chat box, and then we'll be able to put them over to our panellists. So before we introduce our speakers for this afternoon, I also just wanted to quickly remind everybody that we will be putting a link to an evaluation form at the end of the session. So Gabby's very helpfully going to put that in at the end, and this will just really help us in order to know what things we can improve, what things you want us to keep doing in future webinar sessions. So thank you very much in advance for filling that out. It will also be available in the follow-up email that will come to you. So without further ado, we're really lucky today to be joined by our panel members to be talking all about apprenticeships. We're really lucky to be joined by some actual apprentices as well, who are going to talk about their experiences. So first of all, we have Aidan, who's an apprentice at Nielsen UK. We also have Holly, who is an apprentice at Mark Rutherford Upper School. And finally, we also have Brittany, who is an Ask Delivery Partner for Advisor. So any questions that you have at any point throughout the webinar and that you want to ask any of our panel members, then please do so. So I'm going to hand over to our panelists to quickly introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with Aidan. If you could just do a little introduction to who you are, what you do, that would be great, Aidan.
Absolutely. Hi everyone. So my name's Aidan Rawlings. I'm a sales apprentice at Nielsen IQ UK. I'm in my third year now, so graduating hopefully in May or June. And yeah, so I chose an apprenticeship route as opposed to standard university, because I felt as though I probably wouldn't do as much as I should on my own, and having the prompt of a business and working in the week, having that stability and that sort of structure really helped me, and also it's debt free. So yeah, that's a big bonus, and that's why I was drawn to the route in the first place.
Brilliant, thanks Aidan. I'm now going to move over to Holly, if you could do...
Hi, my name's Holly Perry. I work at Mark Rutherford School. I studied here for 7 years, finished my A-levels, and then got an apprenticeship here. I've been here doing my apprenticeship now for nearly 2 years, and I passed my final exams at the beginning of April. So yeah, my current job title is STEM assistant, and I am responsible for the coordination and the planning and the running of STEM events here at the school.
Brilliant, thanks Holly, and congratulations for passing your exams. That's great news. And finally, Brittany.
Hi, yeah, my name's Brittany Clear. I am not an apprentice. Unfortunately, I haven't been an apprentice, although they sound pretty good, and I'm quite sad I didn't know about apprenticeships when I was the right age. So I work for an organisation called Advisor. We are a not-for-profit organisation that specialises in careers guidance. and we deliver the Ask project, which is essentially awareness and information to deliver to schools and local authorities, teachers, parents, the whole kit and caboodle, just on apprenticeships. So that's what I do. I do delivery of that regularly.
Brilliant, thanks Brittany. Okay, so I'll get started with some questions. So first of all, I'm going to put this one to Aidan. Could you please tell me, what were you concerned about before starting your apprenticeship, and has anything changed since then? Do you feel more confident in your apprenticeship now?
Yeah, so I'd say the one thing I was probably concerned the most about was the full working week, and whether I'd be able to cope with the 5 days of solid sort of working throughout that whole period, not having any days off, and actually whether I'd be able to enjoy myself, to be honest, and it wouldn't be like really stressful or really full on. And actually I found the opposite. The structure and the sort of routine that my job gives me is really valuable to me. I'm sort of a bit useless when I'm left to my own devices, so having that solid like stability is really good. And yeah, I'm also able to really enjoy myself and have fun. And there's a really good group of people a similar age to me in the other apprentices in the business. And yeah, I'm able to have a really good time and enjoy myself, and obviously not have any debt at the end of uni, which was a massive bonus. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Aidan. And Holly, can I ask you, did you do anything outside of your education to support your application towards your apprentice? So what sort of advice would you have for students that may be thinking of applying in terms of putting extracurricular activities on your application?
I think for me, I did do stuff because I had a rough idea of the field that I wanted to go into once I finished my A-levels. So I would say for students, if they do know what they want to do, then to definitely try and do something, whether it's within school, whether it's outside, volunteering, getting a part-time job, anything like that. If you don't know what you want to do, then I think it's a case of just trying to get out there and do as much as you can without overstretching yourself, because you don't want to be like knackered at the end of the day. But the more you can do, the better your chances are of building up your CV, and then you have more skills and more qualifications to then put on your applications to jobs and for apprenticeships. So for me, I had quite a bulk of stuff that I did in and outside of school. So when I came out of my A-levels and applied, I had quite a strong application going forward.
Thanks, Holly. And have you got any advice in terms of sort of linking, in terms of like writing your application, in terms of linking your experience with your skills? So how did you actually go about that with your application and make that really obvious to the apprenticeship provider?
So for me, the main, I guess, the main thing that was needed for me to kind of get my foot in the door was to have experience planning and events. So for me, I had that because when I was a student, I was quite heavily involved with the planning of events here at the school. So it was important when I was doing my application, I could say that I got leadership skills because I led on this event, and I work well in a team, and I work with external providers on this, so I have good communication skills. So I think it's important when you've got to link them key skills that they're looking for with stuff you've done in the past and examples as well, because then when you go for the interview, they're more likely to say to you, okay, so you've put here on your application that you've done X, Y, Z, like, can you explain more on that? So you need to make sure you've got like a solid foundation to build up on that, and then you can kind of talk into more detail in the interview. Or yeah, so I think it's just a case of making sure that you are listing all the experience you have, all the skills that they need, and make sure you're ticking off all the boxes, and then if you get to that interview stage, you can expand further.
Thanks, Holly. That's really good advice. So yeah, I think that'll be really useful in terms of teachers being able to put that advice across to students, because I think sometimes it can be really difficult to just draw on the skills that you have and to recognise them as well. So thank you. So I'm going to ask Brittany, just so that we can clear up any confusion in terms of the qualifications that you may need for different types of apprenticeships. Can I ask, sorry, I know it's quite a big question, but a question that's come in is, what are the different types of qualifications that you need for apprenticeships at different levels? So what do you need for level 2, 3, 4 and 5?
Yeah, actually, all of this information is available on the UCAS website, which is really good. UCAS are really kind of getting on board with apprenticeships recently, particularly. So level 2, you just need to be 16, essentially. The level 2 apprenticeship is equivalent to roughly a GCSE anyway. So they won't really be expecting too much in the qualification end of that. A level 3 is equivalent to an A level, so they're going to be looking for 3 or more GCSEs. It's important to bear in mind, though, that yes, obviously these are all benchmarks for particular things, more so with entry requirements regarding qualifications for if you're going into a higher and degree level qualification. But generally speaking, it's about the employer and obviously the education provider as well. So it's all down to each individual opportunity, which is a bit of an annoying answer, I appreciate. But generally speaking, there are kind of benchmarks, higher level 4, which is obviously kind of looking into the equivalent to a foundation degree, that sort of thing. You're going to be looking at least 5 GCSEs, A to C or 9 to 4, and at level 3 qualifications, including A levels or MVQs or anything like that. But it's just really, really important to have a look at the entry requirements on each of the individual opportunities, because like I said, each training provider is different, each employer is different. So it's just going to be a case of looking at the entry requirements per thing. But as a benchmark, that's what all of those levels are equivalent to and what they're looking for.
Brilliant, thanks Brittany. So you say that UCAS is a really good website to look at. I was just wondering if there's any other websites and just sort of like key hubs of information that sort of have everything there that you'd recommend? Yeah,
absolutely. The Amazing Apprenticeships website, so that's www.amazingapprenticeships.com. That's a hub of information. The ASK program use that website all the time, and it's got everything on it. It's got information on traineeships as well. We get quite a lot of questions regarding traineeships, particularly if you're not quite ready academically or just work experience wise before actually getting onto an apprenticeship. So those are really good for young people. It also covers things like T levels as well. They're coming in too, so there's lots of information coming in around that as well. So I definitely recommend the Amazing Apprenticeships website. There's loads of information for students, for parents, and also teachers. And the teacher materials are aimed actually at different year groups. They're also covering Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 as well, to try and get younger people a bit more aware of the apprenticeship process, as well as the further education as well. And also just the Finding Apprenticeship website. That's where all of the opportunities, a lot of the opportunities are available. And also Fire It Up. That's the other government kind of incentive for apprenticeships as well. So any of the government apprenticeships pages, they've got loads of information on it too.
Brilliant, thank you Brittany, and Gabby has very helpfully put those links into the chat, so if you wanted to open those now and have a little look later, then that's where you can find them. Thanks Gabby. I would now like to ask Aidan, this is a really nice question, what is the best thing about being an apprentice?
Ooh, yeah, I've mentioned it briefly now, but yeah, for me, it's just the routine and the structure that it gives me. So I can plan my week with the various meetings that I have throughout the week, all of the calls, obviously being virtual at the moment. But yeah, I think for the first couple of years for me, it was actually being in the office and being in a business environment and being able to just hop into meetings with all sorts of different people. The number of people that I've met over the past 3 years, sorry, is actually crazy when I think about it. And building that sort of network is probably a really key aspect. But also, yeah, doing it with people similar age to me, and building those sorts of relationships, I guess, is probably a real highlight.
Yeah, definitely. It's just really sort of puts your foot in the door in terms of being able to create those contacts, and that is just such a big skill in any job, isn't it? So yeah,
absolutely, yeah,
definitely really good to learn that early on. Fab, thank you, Aidan. Can I ask, I'm going to ask Aidan this one again. What are your long-term goals after completing an apprenticeship?
Well, I'd like to stay with Nielsen if they offer me a position upon completion of the apprenticeship. That would be really nice. Obviously, having been there for 3 years, it would be nice to stay on and see where that takes me. Long term, I'd like to go abroad and work elsewhere around the world. I mean, we're lucky that we've got, I think, offices in almost 100 countries. So there's a choice there in terms of where to go. But yeah, I think travel a bit, and then obviously sort of progress and see where I can go, either at Nielsen or maybe even elsewhere in the future.
Brilliant, thanks, Aidan. I've got Colleen who has a hand up. I don't know if you want to ask a question, Colleen.
Yes, I just wanted to ask Holly the same, because it'd be interesting to see a different perspective, both what she liked best about being apprentice and what her long-term goals are. Thank you.
So for me, I think the bit that, yeah, kind of similar to Aidan, the meeting so many different people, and I think for me, being an apprentice, I've had so many different experiences already in like under 2 years than I would have had I gone to uni or had I just gone straight into a job. I am the only apprentice within the organisation, so although that was a worry at first because I thought like I'm going to be the youngest, I find mixing with, I guess, like the adults is so much better, and I feel more mature in myself and the way I approach a task. Coming straight out of school right into it, it was kind of an adjust going from being with students all day to essentially then working with my teachers. But I think the bit that I enjoy the most is the kind of the day-to-day things, the meetings, the seeing people around school, the if it's, I don't know, I have meetings with internal people and external people. I've met so many different people from across the country, really. So I think that is definitely the highlight. And then when I have an event and seeing how happy the students are, I think that is definitely, yeah, it's enough to put a smile on anyone's face, really. Yeah, so I guess my average kind of working day is meetings and planning for events, kind of admin stuff, getting letters sent out to parents, keeping on track of social media. Yeah.
Brilliant. That sounds like a really varied role that you have, Holly. Like, it does sound really exciting. So thank you.
Yeah, it's really good.
Like, yeah, being so positive about it. It's like, yeah, it sounds great. So I've got some questions that have come through on the chat, actually. So I'm going to ask this one to Aidan and Holly again. What does your typical week look like for you? And is there a mix of teaching and working time to do assignments / projects?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Average week. So my university day is Tuesday. So yeah, I've actually got a reading week. So I would traditionally be 9 till I think 3:30 in lectures. So it's all on one day. But then the rest of the week is pretty much just meetings and keeping on top of various things I've got on at work. So I'm in sales, so it's often just talking to my clients and then also just chasing up basically leads and to generate sales. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Is there a mix of teaching and working? Sorry, is there a mix of teaching and working time to do assignments / projects?
Okay, yeah. So as I said, a whole day at uni, and then we get 4 hours contractually to work on our assignments the rest of the week. But that is really negotiable. So if you're pretty full on with uni work and you've got a few assignments to get done, if you talk to your manager, they're always really good in terms of letting you crack on with that and get them done to the best standard you can.
Brilliant, thank you, Aidan. And Holly, can I ask the same question to you?
So for me, I don't have a well, I didn't have a set day or time to do the online courses and the training. I had to do 482 hours worth of training over an 18-month period. So it was up to me whether I did that, had like a week just doing that straight out one day, did a few hours here, a few hours there. But I do think because of the pandemic and having to then go to adjust to work from home, for me, it was kind of that gave me the opportunity to then focus on the apprenticeship, because planning events, we couldn't do any. The only ones we could do were virtual. So I was, I guess, lucky having that time to focus on the apprenticeship, focus on getting the qualifications, completing all the courses, like all the modules. Yeah, but I did have to do a minimum of 482 hours of pure apprenticeship work.
Wow, okay, on that note, I've got to ask, have you got any top tips on how students can sort of organise their time?
I think for me, I kind of had a rough idea in my head of what I was planning to do each week. So if we were planning an event, then I know, okay, so this has got to be done this day, this has got to be done the next day. For the modules I had to do and the tasks I had to complete for the apprenticeship, I would map in over the 18-month period, okay, deadlines, making sure that all they were met. Modules, I had like 1 week to do this module, but another one that I might have like a couple of months to complete. So I think it's just a case of like looking long term, roughly planning out what you want to do when. You don't have to completely stick to it, but for me, I would definitely say have a rough idea of what you want to do each week. For me, that definitely helped me kind of manage my time, but also enough time to like take a breather on the weekend, step back, like relax, and then start the next week fresh.
Brilliant, thanks Holly. We've got another question through in the chat, and I'm going to direct this one to Brittany, please. Will there be less apprenticeships due to the pandemic?
So yeah, we get asked this question quite a lot because it's obviously been quite a worrying time. Watching the kind of the pandemic play out has been quite interesting. Obviously, the opportunities did dip quite significantly, and that was just purely due to companies having to look after the staff they already have. They're not necessarily in the correct space to be able to recruit. That number is always going up. So every single time I do a new presentation and kind of do some awareness on the opportunities, every single time I include up-to-date opportunity information. And I am finding every single time since October particularly that those numbers in the area, the opportunities that are in different areas are increasing. They're going up every single day. So they are definitely coming back up. A little key thing that was quite interesting off the back of this pandemic in particular, we actually got some data to suggest that apprentices during the pandemic have actually been quite well looked after, which has been nice to hear. I think a lot of people were quite worried about apprentices being made redundant. Obviously the government set up a department to protect and to help and support those who are doing apprenticeships that did get made redundant, but the figures have been really, really good, and that just goes to show that employers really do value apprentices on their teams. They're a vital cog in the machine of their business, and they do really, really support them. With regards to opportunities that are kind of coming up, the government has pumped in a lot of money, so that's been really good. There's been an extra £2,000 on top of the original £1,000 incentive for an employer for each apprentice that they take on. That £2,000 is for 16 to 24, and they're topping it up with an extra on top of the £1,000 for £1,500 for anybody over the age of 24, I think it is. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of incentives for people to do apprenticeships. I think a lot of people are obviously sidestepping career-wise because of the pandemic. So the opportunities are definitely coming up thick and fast. And I think it's also just, there's a lot more knowledge and understanding about apprenticeships and the fact that they are a real genuine opportunity, as opposed to going to university. So it's just about awareness as well. So the popularity of them is increasing, and I think they're a really, really good opportunity for an employer to recruit. So yeah, I think things are looking up for apprenticeships in the future, definitely.
That's brilliant. I was just going to ask the next question in the chat, which actually could apply to any of you three on our panel, and maybe you might all want to add something. It says from Mel, do you have any top tips for apprenticeship interviews for people who are applying at the moment?
Go on, Aidan.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to say, obviously, when you've been through the process, and it's obviously a lot harder to make sure you do it when you're nervous or in the moment. But I think like authenticity is really key. So just literally being yourself as much as you can, and as personal and as personable as possible. You know, I think I was lucky because mine just felt like a chat. My interview, so I'm aware that others are probably a bit more intense, but yeah, it felt like a conversation, and I was able to just basically be myself completely, and I think that is something really valuable. I think people can probably see through a front more than you realize. So yeah, I think that is a really key tip. Obviously, like I say, a lot easier said than done.
I think it's also important when going into an interview is you have some background knowledge of the organisation that you're going into, because I think for pretty much any interview you go to, the first question is, what do you know about the business? What do you know about the organisation? What do you know about us? And for me, another one was like, how are you going to benefit us as a whole? So I do think it's important you kind of do your research before going to the interview, not just sell yourself, but sell yourself as how you can help the business as a whole.
Brilliant, thank you. And we've just had a comment saying, great advice, thank you both. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing your experience. I wonder if Brittany knows any sort of top tips about interviews, or anything that you could possibly add about the nature of interviews for apprenticeships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just important to, particularly for young people who may have never, you know, kind of ventured into this sort of process before. You know, it is obviously going to be very different to applying for just further education on its own. And it's just going to be the usual things. Obviously, Aidan and Holly have touched on a lot of those already. But it is, you know, do your research is obviously the big one. You know, being confident, being professional, and also having some questions in your back pocket as well to ask them. I think that also is fantastic advice just in general for interviews. I think particularly at the moment, it's a really, really important thing to think about is about how the interview is going to take place, because there are lots of different ways of actually conducting an interview. There are phone interviews, there are, you know, obviously video chat interviews, group interviews, you know, all of these different things. And I think if there's any opportunities that they can practice with loved ones, you know, just to do some little mock interviews, there's loads of stuff online, and practice questions and that sort of thing as well. So I think, yeah, I think technology is being used more and more and more, and particularly because of the pandemic. And I think it's just good practice because these methods will be used in the future. So yeah, anything like that is really worth doing. And I guess just having some questions, so some answers prepared. So, you know, think about all the answers that you gave in the application form. And, you know, while you're writing it, just make some notes of some examples. I think this was touched on before by Holly or Aidan. But yeah, just have some examples when you're actually writing that application form of things that you've done, so that you can walk into that interview, and when they grill you, which they will, because they're an employer, and that's what they do, they're trying to make you sweat and to make sure that you're the right person for the job, yeah, make sure that you know that you've got something to say when they ask that question, because, like, you know, like it's been said, they're going to know if you don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, it's just kind of like basic employment interview sort of techniques really as well. So yeah, just kind of that really.
Brilliant, thank you, Brittany, that's really useful. I've got Colleen's got her hand up.
Yes, I'm just looking at the list of questions that we got before the event. One of them I think would particularly pertain to Brittany. someone's asked, once someone started an apprenticeship, is it possible for them to switch? So this, some young people are concerned about the commitment, and obviously with courses, sometimes it's possible, college, university, to swap. Is there such an option if someone's starting an apprenticeship?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of different things that come up around changing or swapping or dropping out, whatever the situation might be. You can just stop doing an apprenticeship and start doing another one. That's how it is. Obviously, what you need to do is you need to discuss it with your training provider, whatever worries that you're having about it. Speak to the training provider, because they'll be able to tell you what your options are. It may be that you're just really unhappy with that particular employer, and there may be an opportunity for you to to move to a different employer that's running the same sort of course and the same sort of position. So that might be doable. Also, if you want to change your apprenticeship subject, you obviously have to stop that one and reapply for another one. But it's going to be important for you to have it ready for when you're asked into the next interview why you left the previous one, because obviously they're going to be worried maybe that you're going to leave this one again. So those things are really good to have in your back pocket. And again, with the training provider, it's going to be important to ask those questions, because depending on how far down the line you are and what your exact scenario is, whether you want to kind of bin the whole thing off completely and go down a different route, or you just want to do something different but still an apprenticeship, there may be costs involved in doing that for the training. And if you want to just leave the job but keep doing the course, again, that may also be a possibility. But it's about speaking with the training provider. You'll get a tutor and all of that sort of stuff. So just be open and honest with them, and maybe they'll come up with a suggestion. But those are the things to kind of keep in mind. You're not tied in. It's not till death. If you're unhappy, you're unhappy. But it's just about kind of being confident enough to speak up about being unhappy. And if there's anything in the workplace that you're unhappy about, approach your employer. Say there's something's not quite right for me here. I don't quite know what it is. Or if you do know what it is, and these things happen with jobs that aren't apprenticeships. So it's just about having that confidence to speak out and to try and work things together like adults. So there are lots of different options, but just tell somebody about it is the most important thing. Just don't sit with it and worry about it. Just do something about it.
Thank you so much. That's really good.
Thanks very much, Brittany. We've got another question that's come through on the chat. So sort of turning away from the sort of helping teachers help students, we're now looking towards like parents and how they can help their students. So are there any resources available for parents who would like to know more about apprenticeships to support their children?
Yeah, so the amazing Apprenticeships website has loads of resources for parents. It's fantastic. Depending on where you are in the world, there will be an ask service person like me, who will often be doing, every single school is offered the ask provision. So that could be something to speak to the school about if they're planning on running anything, as we do these workshops and these awareness sessions all the time. But the Amazing Apprenticeships website is kind of the go-to font of knowledge. They have monthly packs for parents with kind of up-to-date information in it. It's all getting refreshed every month. So I would definitely recommend having a look on there. And yeah, there's lots of stuff on there as well for young people as well. So you can have that conversation together. You can go and have a look at it together. And there's quizzes and all that sort of good stuff on there. So yeah, absolutely. The Amazing Apprenticeship website is the best place to go for all of that sort of stuff.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Brittany. Got another question just come through. So Holly and Aidan, we'll come back to you now. People might worry about missing out on the social life if they don't go to uni. So do you still get to meet people and have fun as an apprentice? I'll go to Aidan first.
Yeah, definitely. It's I think it's a bit of a myth that you can't have fun as an apprentice. And yeah, I'm able to go out with all of my various friends that I've met both through work and through uni itself. And yeah, I say, because I often talk at schools, and I think that's a common theme and question that keeps coming up in terms of whether you're actually able to enjoy yourself. And you know, the answer is yes. To put it bluntly, you can, and I think quite a lot of people are surprised by that. But yeah, that's my experience.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Whenever you kind of mention to someone about apprenticeships, or you say like, oh, I'm completing Monday, the first thing they say is, oh, but don't you want to go out? Don't you want to like be out every night with your friends? And I'm like, you can still do that. You know, I think the only thing different is you wouldn't have that kind of university vibe if you were to go to a club or something. You haven't got all people from university, so if anything, it's kind of more civilized. And yeah, I can go out with my friends, I can go out with my colleagues. Yeah, you don't miss out on social life at all.
And you're also able to afford it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I went to uni, and that was definitely a sort of drawback, was that I couldn't afford anything. Cool. So we've got another question that was submitted before the event, and that is, how can we make apprenticeships more appealing to all students? I'll ask Brittany first, but then I'll also see if Holly and Aidan have any insight.
I think apprenticeships can be really actually quite exciting, because they're a gateway into a different world, aren't they? I think when you're a student, and especially with schools and education providers, I think, you know, it's just become routine that the only thing that gets discussed predominantly is education. Is you need these grades to continue your education, to go to university, to college, university. And I think for a lot of young people, particularly, that's not right for them. And you know, the people, again, there's, you know, these myths around apprenticeships that just seem to keep floating around the ether. You know, that they're only for people who want to go into construction or, you know, hands-on sort of jobs, and that's really not the case. There's so many exciting opportunities in STEM related subjects, you know, science, technology, engineering and maths, because, you know, we're in 2021 and that's where the world's going. And so there are some really fantastic opportunities, and I think particularly if you have got students that are worrying about that, I think an apprenticeship can be an absolute eye-opener. It can be a proper light bulb moment where that sometimes the weight of it is just lifted, that pressure. I think also with parents, I think, you know, getting parents on board with them, again, dispelling those myths that have been floating around, that a lot of, you know, different generations kind of have in their head, and just make them more exciting. You know, the different types of careers that you can go into are fantastic, and those subject areas are growing every time. And I think the money bit is the real winner, isn't it? You know, it's the free education, it's the opportunity to get hands-on, get stuck in, and the fact that you can start earning from day one. And I think if I'd known about apprenticeships, you know, 15 years ago, I think I would have been all for that, because you know, student debt is a real thing, and it's obviously only getting higher, isn't it, at the moment, with it being £9,000 a year, and that's also a big worry. And I think also just because of what we've just been through, and we're still going through with the pandemic, an apprenticeship can be a real foot in the door to a fantastic career. So I think it's just mostly enthusiasm, isn't it, and just knowing exactly what's what, and just, yeah, talking as enthusiastically about apprenticeships as you do education, because that could be a real ticket to success for some young people that maybe are completely alienated by the idea of only doing further education.
Brilliant, thanks Brittany. I noticed Aidan's unmuted himself, didn't know if you had anything else to add. Yeah,
I wanted to build on that final point in terms of where we're at currently, and in the current climate that we're in. I mean, they don't guarantee a job, but there's a high possibility that you will get one after you complete the scheme. And in light of everything going on with, you know, the uncertainty in the economy and whether, you know, I feel very sorry for a lot of my friends who are coming out of uni as grads, who actually have no guarantee of a job, and probably not the job that they have trained to do or wanted to do. And I think that's really sad. So the ability to actually start earlier, come out with no debt looming over you, and then also have the sort of higher chance or almost guarantee of employment afterwards. I mean, what bigger appeal is there really to students and people, you know, at the age that they're looking for employment? Yeah, pretty much what Brittany said, but just wanted to build on it.
That's great. And yes, having that work experience, having that that's something that a lot of people go straight to college or university or sixth form and then university. They don't have that on their CV or on their application. So it's a really good, valid point. Thank you. I had another pre-event question. I was going to ask, I think this would be probably Brittany. I know that you have already been asked about whether or not apprenticeships, if they're still out there since the pandemic, but someone's asked, have you noticed if there's any difference between what apprenticeships are available and if there's a shift or a difference in the kind of apprenticeships available?
Unfortunately, I don't necessarily have access to data on specific industries and fields and stuff, particularly as a result of the pandemic. But I think that this pandemic has really highlighted the importance of STEM. If you know, we were getting there, it was very much a thing, and I think now we've just kind of been thrown at the deep end with the importance of technology, and everybody's having to upgrade their systems, and processes are all being done differently and more efficiently. So you know, STEM is definitely here to stay. It is progressing, and they are rolling out opportunities in things like STEM, like cybersecurity keeps popping up, even things like artificial intelligence. You know, this is some really heavy hitters, like subject wise and industry wise. So you know, I think there's some really exciting opportunities that are coming up. And you know, the tried and tested, you know, industries of construction and, you know, labouring and all of that sort of stuff, you know, plumbing, electrical engineering, those sorts of things, those still work. They are still the best ways of getting into those industries. So I think there has been quite a mix, you know, and especially as life goes back to normal again, a new normal. I think it will just keep growing. These industries will keep growing, and employers will seek the benefits of getting more apprenticeships on their teams, to get people to learn right from the get-go, because there's nothing quite like home growing someone right from the beginning, and I think employers really revel in that, actually. As much as it's lovely when somebody can come in and they can do everything already, sometimes that feeling of home growing somebody is a real asset to their business, and that they can talk about that with pride, with their values and their mission statements and things. So yeah, I think there are some fantastic opportunities coming up.
Brilliant, thanks, Brittany. Yeah, it's really good to hear sort of some positivity about like the future of just labour market in general, really, just for students. And yeah, I think it will be a really good message for teachers to be able to deliver to their students. So thanks for that. We've got another question. I think I'm going to have to put this to Brittany again, I'm afraid. Got another question that's just come through. So do you think the introduction of T-levels will have an impact on apprenticeships? And is there any advice for students on which choice would be right for them between the two?
So T-levels are obviously a very new thing, and there isn't masses of information out there about them, other than the fact that they're slowly introducing them. 2020 was supposed to be the year of the T-level, and I don't think that quite happened in the way that they wanted it to. So they're having to kind of you know, slowly build on that. I think T-levels are just going to be an alternative. I think that T-levels can be a really fantastic option, and I think it ultimately just depends on what the opportunities are out there. It's just another option, isn't it? If like Aidan said, the idea of actually having something that's almost guaranteed at the end of it is something that somebody's really seeking, then obviously an apprenticeship will always be probably better than pursuing any other kind of you know, further education on its own. but T-levels will just bridge that gap, I think. I think if nothing else, because you'll likely still be able to do some T-levels and then apply for an apprenticeship, because the T-level will be equivalent to an A-level. So obviously we haven't, well, I don't think I've ever seen a T-level be on an entry requirement yet, because we're not quite there yet, but I imagine it will be, because that's the whole point of them, is that they're a technical level rather than an academic level. And so that they're still going to be equivalent on paper, they're still going to be equivalent for, you know, going to university and all of that sort of stuff. And so that means that they will still be the equivalent as a you know, a higher level apprenticeship opportunity. So I think if an apprenticeship is definitely what somebody wants to do, I think doing a T-level would be a fantastic bounce pad to that, wouldn't it? More so than doing an A-level. So I think maybe it's more carving the way for more hands-on real life work experience rather than just sitting in a classroom constantly. So I don't think it will have a negative impact at all. I think, you know, the more the merrier, isn't it, with opportunities, and I think that'll really fill a gap with some young people that do feel quite alienated by education and being in a classroom.
Brilliant, thank you. We do have a couple more. I think, Colleen, did you have a question?
Yeah, I actually had a question for Holly. As you've recently finished your apprenticeship, for those who've never done one before, and for them to be able to explain to students and parents, can you explain a little bit about the process of completing the apprenticeship? Like what, maybe there might be some process that you have to go through or paperwork. And the second part is, where have you found support in figuring out your next steps, having completed your apprenticeship?
I'll answer the second bit first, because for me it was relatively straightforward. They've said to me, like, regardless of whether you pass the apprenticeship or not, you've got the job. So I think in that instance I was very lucky that they had kind of recognised the work that I've been doing up until that point, and know that, like, whatever the outcome, I can do the job. So that I guess I didn't really have to search much support, because it was already there for me. But I do think that completing an apprenticeship, it kind of gives you that it kind of gives you a step above people who've just come out of university, because you've had those years in industry. If you're staying within the industry, you've got all that experience. Whereas if you're just coming out of university, you're kind of learning it. You've got like the knowledge behind it, but you don't have the practical element of it. And for the qualification, the end of it, for me, I had to do 3 exams. I had a written exam in the form of a project. I had a verbal exam, and I had to complete a portfolio of evidence throughout the whole 18 months. I had a lot of support with that from my employer, time off off my normal working day to focus purely on that. For everyone it's going to be different. That was the option that I was presented with for those 3 exams. But I know that other apprentices, they have to just sit 1 exam, or it's like no exam at the end of it. It's just based on like how they've been working throughout the course of their qualification. Yeah, I hope that covers it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Holly. Yeah, that was really helpful. And yeah, did you see another question, Charlotte?
Yeah, I've got another one, and then I think I've got a couple more that we'll ask now. Just a reminder though, that if you did have any questions before the end, we've got about 5 minutes left, so now is your time. So I've got a question here saying, are apprenticeships easy to apply for and easy to get? And how many companies did Aidan and Holly apply for before they got to where they are? So I'll ask Aidan first.
Yeah, I think they're pretty easy to apply for. I was actually pretty disorganized, as I have been for the past decade. So I was quite late in the day in terms of applying, but I found it online. I can't actually remember the name of the website. I think it was something literally like find my apprenticeship or something like that, or rate my apprenticeship potentially. And yeah, I applied online through there. The process was basically just uploading a CV and like a cover letter, and then going through to a video interview, and then an actual assessment centre, which comprises like a in-person interview and then team building exercises and different things like that. So yeah, I actually only applied for Nielsen. I didn't actually go for anything else. But yeah, I'd say that it was a fairly easy and comfortable application process, all in all.
I only applied for this apprenticeship. I saw it on the government website, and it was also advertised on the Mark Rutherford website. Yeah, so the only one I applied for, I put the application in the day after it was kind of advertised, because I read it. I knew that's the one I wanted to do. Got the interview, face-to-face interview, and an assessment to kind of, it was basically, this is an event, we want you to plan it, just to kind of get an idea of how they could gauge like my prior understanding. Yeah, and then I got offered it that afternoon. So I feel like that whole process for me was stressful but easy. I think in the moment you're kind of panicking, but then when you come out of it, you realize, okay, yeah, no, I did okay. And then, but yeah, it was the only one I applied for, so I don't really have that experience of other interviews.
Brilliant, thanks Holly. We also had a comment to say, well done Holly, I think when you were talking about your exams earlier, so just wanted to let you know. Colleen, do you have another question?
Yeah, there's one from Kai asking, are there any links or sources for a certain apprenticeship to gain information about? So this might be something that Brittany might be able to help with.
If it's a particular field or a particular industry, then unfortunately it's just going to be a case of Googling it. Unfortunately, there isn't really a hub of knowledge, you know, ready to take. Other than the amazing apprenticeship website does have a thing where it has little profiles, let's say, of different businesses, different companies that are quite well known, that have information on what it's like to work for them, and kind of like little tidbits about them as a business and that sort of stuff. So that's a really good a good place to go and have a look. But generally speaking, that there'll be websites dedicated to particular industries. You know, maybe if it's, you know, the army, you know, kind of like the armed forces, they'll have a big thing on linked to them about that. And yeah, I wish I had a concrete answer for that, but unfortunately, even all of the apprenticeship opportunities haven't been streamlined to one search platform either. The government is looking to do that. Because it is unfortunately quite tedious having lots of different opportunities all over the place. So they are encouraging employers to do it all through the government website. But you know, again, unfortunately, that's the world we live in, and this is exactly the same as getting a job. All jobs are advertised in weird and wonderful places, and so if anything, it's just practice. But yeah, it's just going to be, if there's a particular industry you're looking at. If there's a particular employer that you're looking at, have a look at them. Have a look at LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a fantastic resource. Go and be nosy. Go and have a look. Ask questions. Ask employers if there are any opportunities that you can meet with them, and you know, just engage with them. And the more knowledge that you kind of pick up about them and those industries, the better. And then you can then walk in with a, you know, as a font of knowledge when they fire some questions at you in interview, and you know what you're talking about. So yeah, I wish there was a bit more of a concrete answer on that one, but unfortunately there isn't.
Yeah, Kai appreciates the answer. No, I think that was a very good answer. And yeah, there are many places that you can look, but like you said, Amazing Apprenticeships is one. I know the government apprenticeship website, but specific industries. And there's some, obviously there's the National Careers website and other careers websites where to find out about the industry first or the career, and then go in and look for the apprenticeships afterwards. So that's excellent. Gabby has just posted in our chat. We only have 2 minutes left, but we very much appreciate all three panelists for coming. I know that Charlotte might have more to add, but I wanted to highlight that there's a form any feedback we receive is greatly appreciated. We try to have the interesting topics, and we try to accommodate as many teachers and advisors to attend these, but please do fill in the form. And Charlotte, did you want to add something more?
No, thanks, Colleen. Yeah, just wanted to say thank you so much to all of our panelists. You've really been great with sharing both your experiences, and Brittany, thank you so much for sharing some insight, especially sort of now. I appreciate everything's quite difficult to, everything's changing at once. So, but yeah, it was really, really great to hear from you all. I think it's really valuable for people to hear from actual apprentices, sorry, not apprenticeships, just to be able to share that information with their students. And yeah, it would be really nice for teachers to share your sort of pearls of wisdom. So thank you ever so much. We've also had a lovely comment saying, thank you all, really interesting and informative and some great insights. So I think that nicely concludes the session. So as Colleen said, please do fill out the evaluation form that's just been posted in the chat by Gabby. Yeah, it would be really appreciated if we could get some feedback from you all. And I think that's everything. So good night, everybody. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And to our panelists, of course.